Hello, this is Srinivasan from CFO Bridge again. And continuing our discussion about inflation, I would like to explain to you today about various terms that are used. Yeah, like consumer price inflation, wholesale price inflation, core inflation, headline inflation. There are quite a lot of terms that the economists use, and they also say, about increasing inflation rate, and the increase is not much because of base effect. These are all some of the jargons that are being used. So we are going to bust all the jargons, and let's understand them in simple terms. Yeah. So let's understand what is called consumer price inflation. This is the most important index of inflation that everyone should understand, because at the end of the day, whatever is produced has to be consumed by the consumer. There is no real B2B transaction that originates at B and then ends at another B. Everything has to come to the C, which is the consumer. When as the flow, the final destination has to be consumed by a consumer. So let's understand that everything that is produced has to be consumed in one form or the other at the consumer level, and therefore consumer price inflation is the most important inflation index. Now, consumer price inflation is what you and me we pay for goods and services that we consume, and this is measured on a certain number of items which are being observed over a period of time. Right? Let's say, for example, if there is only one item, potato, in the basket, and potato price as of last month, potato price as of this month, if it was 100 last month, if it is 110 this month, then we say CPI has increased by 10%. Yeah, so this is how CPI is calculated. But unfortunately, the calculation of CPI is not that simple. CPI is measured on a basket. That basket is really a big basket. Okay, very big basket, I can tell you. In India, particularly, there are 299 items in the basket. Okay, so everything is meticulously measured. There is a whole team of people, and there is a ministry responsible for measuring the price from one point of time to another point of time, and then they tell you. Just to give you a little bit of trivia, what are the items that are included as part of the 299? So not in any particular order, okay, I just observed them in my mind, right? I think cigarette lighter is there, the pan ka patta is there, liquor is there, Indian liquor is there, foreign liquor is there, toddy is there, everything is there, even gold is there at 1%. Cable TV consumption is there. Cable TV is pretty much gone, but still cable TV is there. There is photographer, going to a cinema. Library charges is still there. We are still going to library. Horse cart is there. Dung cake is at 0.44% weight. Dung cake is there. Firewood is there, 2%. Firewood is large at 2%. Second hand clothing is there. Walnut is there, but there is no almond. Okay. And the lead fruit in consumption is banana, and the lead vegetable is potato, followed by onion. These are all some of the items that are there in the basket of 299 items. Okay. The rate is calculated over the last period to this period, and that's how we do. And then the rate increase that they do. Now that we understand what is the rate, consumer price inflation, and consumer price inflation, which is CPI, is pretty much called as the headline inflation. Okay. And if you really look at the basket, I just tried to compare the basket of India versus let us say United States and United Kingdom. In India is pretty much, I would say, roti, kapda, and makan, or roti, makan, and kapda. Let me put it that way. The roti is about 46% consumption in India, food and beverages, followed by shelter and energy at about 17%. And then kapda is actually, is about 7%. And then balance is all on, probably bijli, satak, pani. You got transportation. Liquor is at 2.3%, white goods at about 3.8%, and then so it comes to about 100% in India. So in India, the dominant stuff sitting in CPI is food at about 46%. And then if you really consider some of the other items that are regularly consumed, like energy, petroleum and other things, these two, food and energy, petroleum, they are considered as volatile items because, as I told you in my previous talk, food undergoes what is called cyclical inflation. It goes up and comes down, and it is the ability of people to pass on the price increase in food is very, very high. They immediately pass on the the inflation. So food, and the same is the case with crude oil and crude oil derivatives like diesel, petrol, ATF and everything. So the ability is also very, very high. The manufacturers pass on the price inflation back to back. So you have to remove these two volatile items, and then the balance item inflation is what is called core inflation. And core inflation, now you understand, core inflation is the real inflation in the economy. You need to understand how the core inflation kind of behaves after removing volatile components like crude. Crude is volatile in that real sense also. It catches combustible, right? And then crude and food items, you remove it, and the balance items on which, if you observe the inflation over a period of time, it is called core inflation. So you understand that that is the real inflation built into the economy, and it is moving forward. Core inflation is also pretty high in India, and this is something that RBI is always concerned about. So we have understood consumer price inflation, we have understood consumer price inflation basket and core inflation. I told you in India pretty much it is about roti, makan and kapada. Now let's look at USA and UK. Conversely, in USA and UK, it is makan first. 40% in USA is the basket. Basket consists of shelter and energy. In UK is about 31% as compared to 16 or 17% in India, shelter. And food and beverages in India is 46%, USA 16%, UK about 18%. So, they are all advanced economies. They are spending more money. So, I presume that if you are an advanced economy, you are spending more money on shelter and less money on food. That's you can kind of conclude what exactly is an advanced economy. And then there are very interesting items in United Kingdom. For example, United Kingdom has even got an item called the dating app manager's compensation is included in the basket. It's kind of interesting that we see. It's an item, research item in itself, that if we do the what is there in the basket for inflation, it kind of represents the culture of the country. And I talked about the constituent of some of the items of there, which is there in the Indian basket. So that's about consumer price inflation. We talked about headline inflation and core inflation. Now let's understand what is wholesale price inflation. And wholesale price inflation is kind of B2B. It is always done at the bulk level, largely manufactured good. The services element is not there in it, and then shelter like rent and other things are definitely not there. Okay, so manufactured goods are at a bulk about 65% weight in WPI, and then there is food items at about 15%, crude oil and other minerals, the balance about 15%, and then there is balance 5% is between non-food items and minerals and other things. So wholesale price inflation in India, surprisingly, wholesale price inflation was very, very high, and consumer price inflation was very low. Not that high, right? Wholesale price inflation was in double digit, 14-15%, and consumer price inflation. So what would be the reason for it? Is the companies, the businesses are kind of observing, or it is little bit of there is a taxation cushion when it comes to consumer. Prices are not being passed on directly by manufacturers back to the consumers. Prices are getting absorbed. So what is happening is the profit is taking a beating. So that's why sometimes, as the wholesale price increases, as the consumer price is not increasing, stock markets start reflecting this. That the businesses are incurring, not making adequate amount of profit, and therefore there is something else is being cushioned, and therefore stock market starts reflecting it. So that's about wholesale price inflation. And then this rate increase, finally, let us understand that this base effect, right? Yesterday the inflation for the month of June was released, and then the market is rejoicing that it is at 7.01% versus 7.14% in the month of May. There's only about 11 or 12 basis points difference between May and June, and then we are saying inflation is cooling off. The base effect, let us understand, is on the increased amount that is already calculated in the month of May. Let's say, go back to our potato example. If potato is 100 rupees in month 1 and if it is 110 rupees in month 2, then we say that the inflation is at 10%. And then if it increases in the third month, the base is 110. It is calculated at the higher base. So obviously the amount will be low. For example, if we look at that in the pandemic, if something price has gone up by, let us say, 100%, okay, if 100 has become 200, and then next month, if it has gone, so first month you will say that my CPI increase on month basis is 100%. Let us say it has gone up by another 100 rupees, from 200 to 300 rupees. We will say it is only 50%, and then we all will be happy, rejoicing. Let's understand that the balance 50% is on the 200 rupees. It's still 100 rupees. It is going to bite you, hurt you very badly. So inflation increasing is a compounding effect. Okay, it is calculated on the base. So this base effect is kind of we cheating ourselves, right? And we rejoice in all these kind of small hacks and cheats. And so it is kind of a cheat code. So for you to understand clearly, you need to go to the real base and then say what is the number right now. And that's how you should understand inflation. And now that we have understood all the measures of inflation, then in the last and concluding part, I will talk about what exactly is inflation means to businesses, why is wholesale inflation, retail inflation is kind of different, and how businesses can actually are going to get impacted by inflation and how they can make use of this. I will talk about it in the concluding part. Thank you so much. Bye.